Hi Harsh, thank you for coming on AWS Startup Spin. Absolute pleasure. First of all, let me tell you, I'm extremely jealous of the job that you do. It has been my dream to run a sports fan company. I was a huge fan of Mark McCormack years back when I did my MBA. But just in association with you today is probably making me feel a little better. So once again, thank you for coming on the show.
No, thanks a lot. It's my privilege to be here.
So Harsh, let's start with sports first. And I know sports mean a lot for you as well. You played football. The inspiration of your company actually comes from the fact that you played fantasy football in the UK years back. And to me, I didn't play a lot of football, but it was very important for in my growing years because it taught me a very important lesson, and that is about being not selfish. And when you're young, you want to be the goal scorer, you want to be the dude, and then your coach comes and tells you, "Hey, buddy, the game is not about goal scoring. The game is about setting up the goal." And I think to me that stayed with me because it kind of just exemplifies the concept of a team sport. And I'm sure you, during your playing days and your sports interaction days, have also learned a lot from this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for all kids, sports teaches you a lot about generally about life, about culture. Like it teaches you how you have to have skill to play, but you have to work super hard, right? So you can't like Ronaldo is a perfect example of someone who just works like insane, right, to be where he is. But you can't just have skill, right? But skill is important. You have to, in sports, you have to create a good team if you want to win. You can't have one Ronaldo or one Messi in the team and just think that, okay, or one Kohli or one Dhoni or anyone or one Rohit, anyone in the team, and that team is not going to win just by that person. So I think it's very important that sports teaches you to create a good team, but also that a good team is not just skill sets put together. They complement each other. Their chemistry is more important, right? Once you cross a base level of skill, and it teaches you how your skill level only will take you so far, right? One player doing well can make a team win, sure, but one player doing badly, your star player doing badly, doesn't mean the team has to lose every time. So everyone has to pitch in, right? And sometimes your fringe players will do well, sometimes your star players will do well. So it's about teamwork. It's about learning how to lose. It's about learning how to win graciously, right? It teaches you so many. It teaches you about injuries, that there are times you just can't do anything, right? You have to sit back and wait. And so it teaches you a lot. It teaches you about how your opponent is. It's not just how you play, but you have to study your opponent and then play according to that. So I think sports teaches you an amazing amount in life.
Beautifully said. And there's this famous line by Mourinho when he was asked that, you played with such big guys and how do you manage great players? He said, I don't manage great players. I manage great teams. And they play in that team. So I thought that was an interesting line, which you're actually saying that it's about the team and not individuals.
Do the teams stay great after him as well? Or?
I knew that was coming.
I'm a Manchester United fan. What do you expect? I know.
I know. That's why I said, let me start by throwing a googly. The rest of the conversation would be about Manchester United.
Yeah, we've been burnt already. So, yeah.
So you spoke about MS Dhoni in the beginning, and I think I just remembered the fact that years back you had signed on MS Dhoni, and I thought at that point of time this was a masterstroke. And why do I say that, right? Because Dream11 is about the fan using his intelligence to do these master tactical things. And who is the god of tactical genius? Who is the king of native intelligence? This is MS Dhoni. And so I thought this beautifully dovetailed. And I must tell you a small story about MS Dhoni. Apparently, once the Indian team was getting late, so they had to do something. And Anil Kumble said the best way to do this is that whoever comes late will get a 10,000 rupee fine. 2 days later, it was more or less the same. Dhoni came in and talked to the management and said, listen, guys, whoever comes late, he doesn't get fined. The entire team gets fined. From that day onwards, nobody came late.
Right.
I'm sure you also thought through Dhoni Association.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Actually, the Dhoni Association is a pretty unique story for us. Earlier when even in our office, right, which we actually call a stadium, by the way,
Wow.
We had like Dhoni's images plastered everywhere saying, this is Captain Perfect, this is Captain Cool, this is our persona that we want to follow for our company and for our users, because you essentially need to have a high level of skill. It's not chance, right? It's all skill. You need to earn that respect by scoring the, amazing runs and doing really well and being one of the best wicket keeping batsmen in the world. But then what really makes you special and amazing, and as the best like selector for Dream11 and as a company as well, is not your performance, but when you can get the best out of people under you, right? So as a user, your skill is only good if you can pick the best players who will perform the best, right? And as a captain, we call all our managers captains at Dream11. As a captain, your skill is only good if you can get your team to outperform, not your own performance. That's not scalable. And so for Dhoni, when we signed him on, we didn't actually approach him saying that we wanted to be an ambassador. The agency that we are working with for our ad campaign came and pitched to us. We told them we want the ad to say "Dimag se kuch karna hai," "Dimag laga ke khelna hai," Dream11, and they finally came back to us with a title, "Dimag se Dhoni."
Wow.
And we were like, "Oh my God, this is perfect," right? So based on the title, based on the ad campaign we wanted to run, we said, "Yaar, Dhoni nahi bolega because hum log ki औकात क्या है?" This is like 5 years ago, and we said, "Kahan Dhoni हाँ bolega?" And then we tried Dimag se X, Dimag se Y, Dimag se Z, all different players, right? Just didn't fit. Dimag se Dhoni was perfect. So we approached Dhoni saying that this is a title, this is the ad we've created, and that's why we want you to come on board, right? And fortunately, he also loved it. And that's how the association started. So in a twist, normally you get the ambassador and then you frame a campaign. We first decided the campaign, then we got the ambassador.
That's a beautiful story. Harsh, I've always seen that childhood influences play a critical role in the, decision making, or for that matter, the thinking pattern of individuals or entrepreneurs or sports people. I remember speaking to an ex-captain of India, and he said that I came from a conservative household, and therefore sometimes my decision making was also conservative. But many times in entrepreneurs, I have seen that some incident in their childhood has happened, and that has kind of triggered maybe the business idea or maybe their way of thinking. Did you have any moment in your childhood that kind of made you the person you are today?
Yeah, so I think growing up, I think my mom is really sporty, right? So she used to take me for football, basketball, swimming, table tennis. Like if there was a sport in the school that the school would allow kids to participate, I was there, right? I even got a shot put medal in school. I mean, like it was like literally anything, right? So cricket and football and all, though, obviously. And I think that really ingrained that sporting culture. But to top it off, I used to play a crazy amount of video games, right? So gaming was a passion. And then I remember this place called Trocadero in London. So we used to visit London often, and I hated shopping, right? I can't stand shopping. And my mom and dad would go shopping, and I would bug them to like no limit to get out. So finally, they got a solution, right? There was this place called Trocadero in London, which I loved. It was 5 floors. Like imagine one of those malls, but only video games, the whole mall, right? And it was like a dream come true for me. So what my mom and dad used to do, they used to leave me there when I was like, let's say 11, 12 years old with a phone and 50 pounds. And they used to say that, okay, we'll come back after like 5 hours. You figure out how to use this 50 pounds. You have a phone. You can call us anytime you want. And you now just like spend your time, and you have 50 pounds. You have to manage your budget and figure it out. So I used to I loved it. They loved it. Win-win. But I had to use my 50 pounds in 5 hours, right? So I had to use 10 pounds an hour. So I had to budget it down, where if I use the 10 pounds too quickly, it would mean that I had to just sit around and wait because I didn't want to finish my money and then wait for hours. So that whole experience of like budgeting, gaming, independence, encouraging your child to be like, to push them down the sports, gaming, etc., which a lot of parents honestly don't do enough. That if your kid has those interests, let them pursue it, right? That really like shaped me, and that independence and that responsibility, I think, was a very important part of my life.
Wow, what an amazing simulation that your parents probably did at a time where nobody knew what simulation was, and to a child, so that kind of got the best entrepreneur in him, and today he's running a successful company. Wow, this is a lesson for all parents who are going to watch this show.
Yeah, I definitely hope that parents just allow their kids to do what they're passionate about, right?
True.
सबको को doctor, engineer और ये सब नहीं बनना है, right? Like,
true. I completely agree with you. There are three words that define great entrepreneurs and great sports people, and that is that never give up slogan. And I've seen a lot of sports people talk about, has this guy gone the other side? What they're basically meaning is that, boss, the story starts when everybody gets tired, right? Because that's when you never give up. And there's this amazing line that Rafa Nadal used when he was, 2 sets all in the epic Wimbledon final 2009, where Nadal was, going to win the grass court for the first time. He won the 2 sets, and then Federer came back, the great Federer, winning the next 2 sets. Tony Nadal said that in that break, I need to go and tell Rafa something so that he wins. And Rafa tells Tony Nadal a beautiful line and says, I don't know if Roger wins, but I'm not going to lose this match. I mean, to me, that sums up that never give up, right? मेरे को consequences से पड़ी नहीं है, मैं नहीं हारूंगा. And I think you'll relate to it because you've gone through that period where nothing is working. You change yourself into a digital company. Share some story which kind of, will tell the viewer as to what never give up meant for you.
Yeah, so I think first of all, this was just an idea on a whim, right? It was just purely it was a passion idea, right? 2008, I had come back from engineering in UPenn in USA, back to Bombay, and was working with dad on the family business. And I was a huge fantasy football fan from 2001, right? And IPL started and I went looking for fantasy cricket. And Thai nahi. And I was like, this is crazy, right? 70% of US sports fans play fantasy sports. And India may 1 billion fans are there and we don't have fantasy cricket. Super Selector was the original starter, which had shut down, right?
Yeah.
Great product, wrong timing. And it was literally without any like consulting study, without anything. I said, ki, chalo, this is a problem I have to solve. So I just jumped into it. And one of my friends was stupid enough to jump with me, right? He said, chalo, I also don't like my job. Main bhi aata hu, right? So we started this together that time. And his name is Bhavit Shetty. He's my co-founder, right? And so we started in 2008. We went, my dad said, let's go meet some of the gaming gurus. My dad was a little dicey, kya hai fantasy cricket. So we went to meet some gaming gurus of that time. And all of them told me the same thing. What a horrible idea this is, right? And it is never going to take off. And I pitched to them free to play, ad-driven business model, US fantasy sports, season long. And they told me it's terrible, just a terrible idea. Please go and work in your family business. You've got a great opportunity. So I said, okay. Yes, good advice. And then I went and did it anyways, right? Because I was just like super passionate about it. I was going to sleep thinking about it. I was waking up thinking about it. And so I started it. And then 3 years later, it took us 3 years. We are slow learners, right? So it took us 3 years to realize they were all right. 3 years later, we had zero revenue. We had spent crores of startup seed money from my family. And we learned that the season-long, free-to-play, ad-driven format does not work. Okay? But we saw that there was something there. People liked the game. But as a business, it didn't work. Abhi paisa banana hai, right? And I am too stubborn to go back to my family and say, you were right, I was wrong. Now I need more money to fund the same failure, right? We said, no, we are not going back to get more money. So we started a digital agency in 2010. And 2010, we moved, we had about 40, 50 people. We moved 40 of them to 35, 40 of them to the digital agency and kept only 8, 10 of us working on the product vision.
यानी उल्टा pivot.
Correct. So in 2011, if you ask me what I did, I would say I'm the CEO of Red Digital, a digital media agency. And we have this if you really push me, I'll say, hi, side project hai, Dream11, wo chota mota sa, wo kar rahe hai side pe. Then in 2011, 12, we kept pivoting while the agency made enough money to afford for us to keep experimenting. And 2012, we found the model we were looking for.
Achha.
And then we sold the agency to pump all the money back into Dream11, take it forward for the next 2-3 years, go through 150 no's from VCs for funding, finally find Vani Kola and Shashin Shah from Kalari and Think Investments to agree in 2015 for a Series A, and then the rest is history.
Wow. So basically, when somebody says no to you, you say, boss, ab to gaya, karne hi wala hu." And I think that's a very important quality, right? Because most people, sports people also, when they said that, no, I don't think you have a chance to go beyond the 4th round, bas, rest is history. Ab to isko prove karna hi hai ki main jaunga.
Exactly.
And I think that drives entrepreneurs as well, right?
100%. 100%. It's that drive to prove the rest of the world wrong. It's a bit of that stubbornness and arrogance and ego and perseverance and idea and everything, like pura bhelpuri hai, right?
So now these are all the strengths, right? Now I'm going to come to the point where, we are talking about weakness and we are saying that, ki, boss, ye sab to theek hai, entrepreneur ban gaya, abhi unicorn ban gaye. But yaar, wo ek personal mastery karni hai, in the sense that this is that one thing that I need to work on myself to get better and better. What is that one thing for you?
Well, my wife reminds me about this every day, right? But I just can't switch off from work, right? For me, normal life is a break from work. Sleeping is a break from work. Most of my meals I like to do during Zoom meetings here and during meetings in office, right? So for me, it's, and I think that that's an entrepreneur's curse also, because it's not work for you, right? It is your life, and that's why you can sustain so much and you can do things. But I think at some point, now that we've scaled up a decent amount, I need to learn to switch off. I need to learn to go do more yoga or something. I need to learn to have a little more balance. Otherwise, I think even Ashish Himrajani from Book My Show says, right, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? So I think we all need to learn how to run a marathon. And entrepreneurs, I think in the starting, it is important for you to just be wired the whole time, right? But then at some point, you have to be able to transition also from a wartime CEO to a peacetime CEO.
Well
from the book, The Hard Things About Hard Things. It's an amazing, whole philosophy there.
Beautifully said, because I think many great coaches say that the better you rest, the better you perform. And maybe that if you start resting a little bit, your family will be happy and maybe 100 billion will not be too far. So maybe that little bit of rest. I think there's a very interesting theory in sports called super compensation, where they say that even for bodybuilders, when you take heavy weights, you need to rest for 2 days and not allow the muscle to break. And when you take that 2 days of rest is where the muscle expands to the best ability, thereby resulting in better performance. So I think rest is important.
I think we need more people like Bill Campbell in the US, right? Who was one of the best coaches to Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Page, Sergey, Steve Jobs, all of them. I think most of the top CEOs in US for tech have been coached by whom?
Bill Campbell.
A sports coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
He knows nothing about technology, right? Yeah. Who, as in just generally, he was a football team coach. That's it.
Yep. And probably because they understand high performance, right? And we never looked at business as high performance. On the contrary, I always say to my entrepreneur friends that sports people have resting time. Business people don't have resting time and holidays. There is an off season for sports. There is no off season for business. On the contrary, you should be coached by football coaches rather than footballers. So
Absolutely.
let me come to a very important point which works in the sports field very on a regular basis, and that's routine, right? Great
Yeah.
sports people do the same thing again and again to reach the high concentration levels, plus work ethics. Your favorite player, Cristiano Ronaldo, is the god of work ethics. And there's a story that Tevez always says that one day I wanted to surprise Ronaldo by going at 7 a.m. for a 9 a.m. practice. And when I reached there, Ronaldo was there. Next day, I went at 6:15. I reached there, Ronaldo was there. After that day, I went at 6 o'clock, Ronaldo was there. So clearly, it's not easy to become the best in the world. You have to be in your work ethic chart the best in the world. I'm sure you have your routines. You do a set of things that have made you what you are. I'm sure you'll share that with us.
My calendar is my life. I even put family time on my calendar, right? So if you see my calendar, it is literally like jam packed. So I'm very like OCD and like ADD, right? So I need everything in order. I need it like completely set. I need all my stuff put exactly in format. I run the business also that way. I use like a monday.com for like a product management software. I mean, a project management software. So all the stuff needs to be there. Slack is used for communication. So, my entire schedule is focused a lot about getting updates in a structured manner from every team, and each update is also structured in a way that all the teams give the same kind of structure and updates. So I think over time I'm also learning how to like loosen it up a little bit, allow more flexibility. But I think these building blocks are still very important for companies to be built in a way that culture is the most important. So I spend a lot of my time just on culture at the company, because just like a sports team chemistry trumps everything else. Leicester City can win the Premier League because of culture, not because they have the best players in the Premier League, right? I mean, Jamie Vardy is crazy, right? He drinks some like 3 cans of Red Bull and all before every game, and it's like crazy. But it's that team chemistry that made them win. So I think that for us, I spend a lot of my time on culture, in defining culture, in executing culture, in making sure that culture is used from hiring to firing or letting go of people, right? Everything, the a whole life cycle of every employee who we call Sportin, because like it's a sports company, and name of the company is Sporta Technologies in India, which is like sports data, right? So all our Spartans have to go through this rigorous culture, training, and execution.
You're sounding like Alex Ferguson, and because he said when he was in 1986 when he joined Manchester United, he said that I want to work for a long-term club culture and not for
Oh
a
yeah, really?
single championship. And that's why the reason getting youngsters, training them in a certain framework, allowing them the vitamin D boots, which was attention to details, and structuring the success of United. People don't know what went behind the whatever 10, 15, 20 years of success, but it was like you talk about culture. So like it resonates with me what he said, and what you're doing is
Yeah,
absolutely the same.
absolutely.
And interestingly, you have said that in the past that culture is the only thing scalable. And I thought
Yeah.
that was a brilliant line.
I think everything else is just a lagging indicator. If you create the best culture, you'll attract. And by the way, I also believe that there's no right culture. There's only the culture that the founders have, which goes down, which you live with every day, right? And shapes that company. There are hundreds of companies which are super successful, which have completely varying cultures, right? But the fact is that they will attract those people to the company who align with those cultures. Those people will outdo themselves and overperform everything they imagine because they align so well with the culture. They'll stay, there won't be attrition, and they will also get their friends and people, colleagues who they know, and get them to that team. And so I think if you have the right culture, you'll have the right team, create the right products, and because of adding immense value to a customer, whether it's be a user, B2C or B2B business, revenue will follow and then profits. So I think all of that is a lagging indicator of the right culture.
Got it. So basically, that's the foundation. And so there's
Yeah.
a sub point to that clearly, which hiring is a function of culture, right? And like most football teams or cricket teams, like Gary Kirsten believed in the fact that I need players. So there's a very interesting thing. Ganguly wanted players who were very talented, which was his culture. Dhoni
Yeah.
wanted a team which soaked pressure. That was his culture. So, two different leaders, two different thought processes. Now, I want to ask you one thing, which again, the great Alex Ferguson says that if there is a great player in my team and he doesn't fit the culture, he goes.
We have a couple of VPs actually who, we have this 360 feedback. So every quarter, the team gives 360 feedback based on culture. We have 5 tenets of our culture, right? Which is do put our culture first is a line we came up with so that people actually remember it. Earlier we had 11 points. I also didn't remember. Then 8 points. Then I also didn't remember all of them. Then we made 5 points on this line. Do put our culture first is something now everyone remembers. So data, ownership, performance, user first, and transparency. And so in a 360 feedback, if your team rates you on an aggregate less than 7 on 10, multiple times in a row, right? It doesn't matter if you're meeting all your targets and everything. I had a VP who was meeting all the targets. The team was doing perfectly fine. But multiple times they got less than 7 on 10 from the team on do put. And so we asked the VP to leave, and the VP was like shocked, right? Saying that, it's like I'm meeting all my targets, but why am I being asked to leave? I said, because you're not a culture fit. Your team doesn't think you're culturally aligned.
Wow.
When we asked the VP to leave, Pandora's box opened. And the whole team started talking about how the VP would not allow them to speak up and this and that, and how they're so happy that that person is gone. So I think that that's a culture in India that people don't speak up. People feel scared. And you have to give them those anonymous tools and empowerment to let them speak up and not allow anything more than culture to carry on. So that same team would have burnt out had we not fixed it, right? But in the short term, it seemed like everything was okay.
And that is the challenge, right? That when you're looking at short term and sales for the quarter, you're like, okay, yeah, chal raha hai to chalne do, paise aa rahe hain.
Right.
And then you kind of forget the larger picture. And very few companies, I do a lot of these corporate shows. And I remember when I was talking to your team during one of the shows, they were like, first understand the culture. I said, you're not giving me a job. But I totally get what
you have to, everyone has to understand the culture.
No, I totally get it. Let's talk about one important aspect of entrepreneurship, and that is partnerships. And, people don't understand the value of partnerships, but I've spoken to a lot of founders in the logistics business, in the banking business, and I understand the scale at which they go into making successful partnerships. And you also, in your business, I'm sure understand the value of partnerships. And being a football lover, again, maybe a team that you don't like, Pep Guardiola talks about Manchester City's success as small partnership success. And I believe entrepreneurship totally is about partnership. Give us your perspective on this. And in that context, if you can tell us your amazing relationship you had with the AWS team as well.
So I think partnerships is very broad, right? It talks about like chemistry between teams, internal and external, right?
Yeah.
Internally also, there's too many silos usually created in corporates where one team is, yeah, this is my work, this is my job, you don't interfere. The other team is like, okay, no, but this is my input, but I don't want to give it because they'll take it badly. I think you have to create that flatness, right, in the organization and hierarchy and everywhere to encourage teams to combine and provide candor, feedback, constructive criticism, and create those partnerships where leaders are told that they are only allowed to build bridges and not walls, right?
Wow.
The same way, I think external partnerships like AWS is a great example, right? In fact, our CTO, I hired also because we were working on AWS already, and I wanted someone who could really get it right. And our CTO was Netflix, ex-Netflix for 5 years, and Netflix AWS kind of grew up together only, right? So they are one of the best integration partnership stories ever. And so when our CTO came on, he was able to cement our partnership with AWS even more. I think over the last 8 years, we've been using AWS, but mainly over the last 6, 7 years, we've been scaling every year from about 1 million users to 110 million users to running about 5.5 million user concurrency on AWS. And I think we've really had this great partnership where we can trust them to manage cloud computing and keep our systems up and running with our team. And both teams have to work together very deeply to make sure that we can manage this kind of scale that we do, which very few people in the world do today. The kind of 5.5 million transacting concurrent users is an extremely hard technical problem to solve.
No, that's amazing, and it's good to see how the synergy between two partnerships come about in the interest of both the partners, and it's good to hear that. Thank you, Harsh, for sharing all these wonderful stories about your mind, the strategy, and what went in the journey of building this beautiful company. I really, really love the way you're doing your things because I have been a cricket and a sports fan since the time I did my MBA, worked in corporate life, and my way to the world of cricket was through imitating sports people, imitating cricketers, and going and traveling with the Indian cricket team for so long. And I used to always feel, Harsh, that nobody represents the fan, right? Everything is about broadcasting on the other side. Ye cricketer aisa hota hai, ye hota hai. Fan ke liye koi nahi sochta. And I'm so glad that you guys have actually created an ecosystem which is only about the fan. And so,
I mean, so sports. If you think about, thanks for that, Vikram, but what is sports? I mean, if you're playing in an empty stadium with no one watching, it's just a fun game you're playing, right? But sports is built on fan bases. That's it.
True.
The reason why some teams are bigger than the others is only because of the fan base, right? So it is all about the user. It's all about the fan. And that's why even in a culture, we have that user first, right? It is always forever going to be about the user. And if you keep the users happy and engaged, then everything else comes from there.
No, but it's strange, right? Indian cricket has been existing for so many years and it took one company after 50, 60 years to figure that out. And obviously, I mean, there are companies who have tried it in the past, but just to get it right and go into the fan's mind and think what the fan is thinking was...
like I said, a lot of it is also timing, yeah? So there has to be luck as well, right?
Absolutely.
Super Selector started this, similar business model back in 2001 too, but no internet penetration, no digital payments. And so I think just like sports, right? You can have your tryout, and in that tryout, you have a bad day or just bad form that day, or you're not getting your eyes set, or like the ball hits a bad spot and you get bowled, right? And then the coach is like, "Hey, theek hai, chodo." And just that little bit of luck has to be there in everything we do. But I think the key is that if you stick around for a long enough time, everybody gets lucky. And then you will find that time to just grab it and grab that moment.
Well said. Okay, in the end, just to put you on a spot, 1 minute, predict the future.
I actually believe a large part of the future will be AR VR, right?
Oh.
The whole way we watch sports, I think, is going to change completely. It's going to be a much more immersive experience where you're sitting at home and you're like, I want to watch the last 5 overs of the match. I'll put on my VR and I'll be sitting there next to Virat and MS and everyone, and next to Rohit, and I'll be sitting there near the dugout watching their reactions and watching from their point of view, right? And hearing the crowds and hearing the players talking about stuff. I think the entire viewership of sports in the next 5 years will change from what we see today, just as like watching on TV, to a much more immersive one with friends at the match virtually.
That is amazing. Thank you, Harsh. Thank you for being so immersive on the show and sharing your beautiful journey. I really appreciate it once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was fun. Thanks, Vikram.